Just addicting. Got it. Okay, let me start letting people in. Hello, welcome folks that are coming in. We're going to get going in a couple minutes. We're just letting people in from the waiting room. And as folks are coming in, mute is helpful in terms of sound, but also would love to have, we don't have a huge group signed up. So if you're able to have your camera on, it's nice to see people that are on the call, if you're able and willing. We'll just keep letting people in. And also as you're coming in, feel free to chime in the chat with name and where you're located. Nice to see who's on the call. Uh-oh. Just going to give a couple more minutes here for people to continue to come in. We've got more. Oh yeah. Welcome people who are just coming in. We can get started with chats to say name and where you are located. And we're going to get going in a couple of minutes. And I did just say before some of you came in that because we don't have a huge group today, if people are able to turn cameras on, it is nice to see people that are on the call if you're willing and able to turn on for a good group conversation. And we still have people coming in the waiting room, so I'm just going to give it a few more minutes. It is lunchtime, and if your camera's on, no shame in eating lunch, doing what you need to do at this time of day. So as people are still coming in through the waiting room, I feel like we have a small enough group that I actually, Alyssa, Jess, if you guys are okay with this, I'd love to do intros around the screen if people are willing. Just to hear, very brief intros, name, and any kind of affiliation that you want to share. And it's nice to know where you're located as well. And I'll just kind of go around the call and call in people. Just as a quick intro, I'm Jenna Kolaski. I'm the Community Engagement and Policy Director with the Vermont Council on Rural Development. And I help to coordinate our Vermont Community Leadership Network. And some of you may have joined VCLN calls in the past, or maybe you're new to this network, but essentially this is a network that actually grew out of COVID response and recovery. We were all at home and started to bring together folks that were engaging in response and recovery work in their communities in response to COVID. And since then, the network has grown to about 3,000 members of just municipal leaders, volunteers, folks that are doing great work in their communities. And we bring together that network every couple of months, every few months for workshops and conversations. And so when the flooding hit, we worked with our partner Wendy here, who will introduce herself as well, and others to say, maybe this is a time to bring folks together again that are working in this response and recovery work in their communities to share resources, share best practices, vent, whatever we need to do to kind of get together and share some space. So that's the goal of these kind of informal conversations. And then also we'll be offering some workshop opportunities coming up that I'll share a little bit more about later. So let's go ahead and do some introductions around the room. So again, Jenna Kolaski, Council on Rural Development. Wendy, do you want to say hello?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Wendy Rice. I run a small women-led business called Vermont Connector, which connects nonprofits and businesses around community engagement and volunteer services in the community. I'm here today in the capacity of the founder of the Facebook page, Vermont Flood 2023 Response and Recovery Mutual Aid, far too long of a title. But it's about an 8,000 member group of just mutual aid and information sharing. And concurrently, there's a resource handbook that's being developed from that page and from other public sources that can be made available. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Wendy. I'll go through some VCRD staff next. Alyssa?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Johnson. I work with Jenna at the Council on Rural Development, and I also live in Waterbury and on the Select Board and have been involved in response there.
Jessica?
Hey everyone, I'm Jessica Savage. I'm the Director of Community Collaboration here at VCRD, and I support our Working Communities Challenge teams, as well as work with Laura Kevin Bailey on our Climate Economy Resilient Communities programs.
Great. And then Laura, are you there?
Hi, I'm Laura Cavabailey. I'm the Climate Economy Program Manager at VCRD.
Wow. Great. So I'm just let's do some very quick intros so we have time to have a good discussion. I'll just go around my screen, starting with Amy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Amy Cunningham. I'm the Deputy Director at the Vermont Arts Council. Live and work here in Montpelier. And I found these groups enormously helpful during COVID. So I'm really grateful that you're reconvening this. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Emily?
Emily Lev, Working Communities Challenge of Living Well.
Thanks. Corinne?
Hi, I'm Corinne. I'm here from CBOEO's Fair Housing Project. I'm also representing Vermont Tenants and the Vermont Mobile Home Program, and they're all statewide programs.
Alana?
Hi, I'm Alana Finney. I am at the Central Vermont Council on Aging. I'm the wellness coordinator, and I used to attend these meetings in my capacity as a community dance organizer and teaching artist. So I'm glad to be here again. I live in Montpelier and our offices are in Barrie.
Great. And then we're going to go Aaron, Valerie, and Brad.
Hey folks, Aaron French. I am the District Director for Public Health with the Department of Health in Morrisville, Vermont.
Valerie, are you there? Not hearing.
Trying to unmute. Sorry.
Oh,
it's
okay.
I work with Aaron. Happened to see this short notice this morning and wanted to jump on and learn more. Thanks.
Great. Brad.
Yeah, good afternoon, folks. My name is Brad Long. I work for Efficiency Vermont. I'm a community engagement manager, so I work in different communities throughout the state. Good to be here.
Excellent. Let's go Gabrielle, Emily, Wood, and Tiana.
Hi, I am Gabrielle Molina. I'm here as a select board member from Calais, and also I'm the executive director for VLight, which is an energy grant making organization. And just thinking about potentially ways that VLight can help as well.
Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily Cindy Wood. I'm in Rutland City, and I'm a member of DARA, Disabled Access and Advocacy of the Rutland Area Committee. It's a volunteer group of people through the Rutland, Vermont Center for Independent Living office, and I volunteer for AARP Online.
Okay. Tiana?
Hi, I'm Tiana Smith with Green Mountain Power, head of electrification, and just interested in hearing how GMP can help support in recovery efforts. Thanks for putting this on.
Thanks. We'll go Catherine, Kimberly, and then Corinne Cooper.
I'm Catherine Boyk. I'm with the Vermont Rural Water Association. We are a nonprofit that helps public drinking water and wastewater systems around the state.
Oh, that just yes. First. Kimberly Williams. I use she, her pronouns. I'm one of our community engagement managers at Vermont Food Bank, and I'm kind of coming at this from like a statewide lens for this meeting.
Corinne?
Hey there, Corinne Cooper. I am in Berlin. I've worn a variety of hats over the years with Vermont Emergency Management and our local emergency management team, assistant town clerk and all, but the role I'm finding myself in right now is I was one of the ones flooded out in Berlin, but have also been the one to wrap around everybody and be able to connect with them and, you know, share some information and resources.
Thank you. Let's go Emmett, Nick, and then Deborah.
My name is Emmett Dunbar, and I work at SEVCA in the main office in Westminster, Economic Development Director, as well as the micro business counselor, and oversee our thrift stores in Springfield and Bellows Falls. We're expecting to maybe help people with some furniture. We have a voucher program, so people can get free furniture, clothing, things like that from the store if need be. And we also do pickups and deliveries with our truck of furniture, which we're always looking for donations. And in general, with working with 25, 30 clients, kind of 15 active, really active right now, business clients, just being sure that I'm prepared to give them the information they need. It doesn't look like I haven't really gotten any alarms from those businesses being flooded out, but and then as a director, I also just want to have information to share with SEVCA with our 95 employees, 7 locations over 2 counties. So it's important that one of us was here.
Great, thanks, Emmett. Nick?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Moreland. I work for the Vermont Center for Independent Living. We are a statewide nonprofit disability advocacy organization serving, like I said, the entire state of Vermont. I'm the information and referral specialist, and I work out of our Montpelier office, which was unfortunately flooded, and we're all currently working remotely, but still working hard to help Vermonters with disabilities and the deaf community. So also interested in looking about new resources and talking about what resources we have.
Thank you. Deb Wright. Hi, Deb.
Hi, I'm here. I'm a a Rockingham planner. I was the chair. I just actually relinquished my position. I've had a few years of that through our town plan, working on our town plan and keeping that in line with what we actually do. I'm also a high school board director, and although I was previously on the trustees in the Village of Bells Falls, I'm constantly involved in the community and the people in it. Also, I have employees in my company who also live here too, so we're always having concerns about housing and how that's going. I was just on a call this morning, the monthly call with the Springfield supported housing project. The Landlord League monthly call. We were talking about flooding and damage and what people are doing about it in our community, what we do to support. Thank you.
Thanks. Betty Fry, are you there and want to say hello? I don't see Betty. Let's go to Jessica Alexander and then we'll come back to Betty.
Hi, my name is Jessica Alexander, town clerk in Jericho. I'm tuning in just to hear about what's going on and if there's opportunities to help. Jericho actually really lucked out during the flooding. We're between the Lamoille and the Winooski. The watersheds actually meet in Jericho, but we weren't affected, but our neighboring towns were.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pat. Hi, Betty Fry.
Betty.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you. I'm having trouble with my Zoom, so I came in late and I know you're just hearing my voice, but thank you for putting this on. It's really important. And I'm just here to really listen right now to what the whole community, the whole state is doing for each other. So thank you again. Thank you.
Great. And Betty, do you want to say where you're located? We lost Betty again. Let's go to Karis. Do you want to say hello?
Yes, hello, thank you. My name's Karis and I use she or they pronouns and I am based in Springfield, Vermont. Hat tip to those who just mentioned Springfield Supportive Housing and SEVCA. Really appreciate both those organizations around here. I've been involved in most recently in some mutual aid support work around this area and supporting a group of folks that have been networking with Mutual Aid Disaster Relief, which is a national org, and getting resources through that to communities across the state working on the ground. I am also an anthropologist, and part of my research is about community resilience and risk and disaster. And a colleague and I at Dartmouth are currently poking around at ideas about possible funding for a project related to working with communities around these flooding events and questions around them in the sort of socio-cultural realm of things. So curious to know how that could be of use, and glad that you all are here. Thank you for doing the work you're doing.
Thanks. So let's go through, we've got about 9 people left. I want to go very quickly through intros so we can get into a bit more of a conversation and hear more about what you all are working on. Let's start with, let's go Neil and then Todd and then Eva.
Hi, I'm
and I'm seeing Eva, your message. Sorry.
I'm up here I'm Neil Morissette. I'm up here in Newport. And the reason why I'm on is, of course, we know like Ethan Allen, which is one of the biggest employers, got really flooded out. And I'm also a retired fireman. So we did a lot of mutual aid and tried to get out there to help people out, but it's going to take a long time. Ethan Allen's still not open fully. And when you're talking 350 employees, that's a big punch for the community for sure.
Thanks, Neil. Todd?
Hello, everybody. Todd Manise. I live in Plymouth, Vermont, and work in the Vermont Rivers Program in flood response. And if you're not aware, there's 6 river management engineers. There's 4 people. Yeah, 4 people helping us out. We've got 10 in this flood response. And I'm just interested to hear what everybody is going on in your part, because I've just been in Plymouth, Bridgewater, and Woodstock in flood response myself.
Seeing Eva's message, she's the project coordinator for Central Vermont Prevention Coalition, but unable to chime in. Thanks for being here, Eva. Michelle, you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi, I'm Michelle Littleman McCormick. I'm a Director of Cooperation Vermont and the General Manager of the Worker-Owned Cooperative at the Marshfield Village Store. So, working to coordinate mutual aid efforts in Marshfield. Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. Mona?
Yeah, my name is Mona Tolba and I work for VDH as a Health Equity and Community Engagement Coordinator.
Great, thank you. Let's go Margaret.
Hi, I'm Margaret Woodruff. I'm the director of the Charlotte Library, and we're part of our emergency management team here in town. And I'm mostly here to learn what other folks are doing and if there's anything we can do to help out on our end. Thanks.
Yeah. Isana?
I'm Ishana Smith. I'm the Executive Director of NITO Weatherization. We're the nonprofit weatherization assistance program in the Northeast Kingdom.
Thank you. And Sharon, do you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm the town administrator for the town of Highgate.
Thanks, Sharon. And there, I am seeing one person on the phone that we haven't heard from. It's a 585 number. If you want to unmute, I believe it's *6 to unmute if you want to say hello.
Hi, this is Cindy McCaff. I'm down in Bethel, Vermont, and I'm a part of our mutual aid team called Bethel Strong, and we partner with the emergency management team here in Bethel. And I'm also associated with the Bethel area food shelf, trying to manage food security during the crisis.
Great, thank you. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for sharing who you are and the work that you're doing. So we've got about 40 minutes, and I want to get a feel from the group here. I can see most of you on my screen, so you can kind of nod head or thumbs up. But we had thought about doing some breakout conversations, but the more I hear about who's on the call and the work that you're all doing, and the fact that we're about 35 people, to me, it might make sense to just stay in one collective conversation and just really walk through, let people chime in on what are you seeing on the ground, what are you working on, and then get into some thoughts on, potential sharing of resources and ideas and next steps. And then maybe in a future call, we can break out as we're maybe thinking more towards longer term recovery work. I'm seeing lots of thumbs up, better to hear from everyone. Thanks, Emily. Okay, great, thank you. I think I'm happy to stay in one conversation. I'd really love to hear from all of you. One thing we do want to do really quickly before we dive into a more open discussion is, Wendy, I wonder if you want to chime in. I don't see Wendy. Where are you, Wendy? I wonder if you might want to just share that we're going to put a Google form link in the chat. Wendy has been doing a lot of work oh, thanks, Wendy. So there's a Google form link in the chat now. Wendy's been doing a lot of work to kind of collect in a central place contact info for different communities, different types of community response going on around the state, and using this form as a way to collect contact information for those of you that are leading response efforts in your area. Wendy, do you want to chime in and describe what you're hoping to collect there?
Sure. So I just posted the link in the chat for everyone. And essentially, I've been trying to comb through all the Facebook posts and all the public sources of information to identify organizations on the ground that are providing mutual aid support or coordinating volunteers or doing major donations and collections. And that information is really spotty and really piecemeal. And the goal is to build out a network of mutual aid organizers across the state to, one, make sure you know of opportunities such as these community chats or other trainings or other ways to reinforce the work that you're doing on the ground. But also, we're still in response phase, but recovery will be long and there will be continued interest and need to connect into those groups, either offering support or needing support. And because I have the 30,000 foot view of issues across communities with that Facebook group, I want to be able to really give them a targeted direction to go if offering or needing help. And the information is just incomplete. So if you would like to include your information that lets us notify you of upcoming opportunities or to connect people in the right places, it's not going to be a regular listserv, but it may be a place to occasionally send you information or updates and make sure that community members know where to go to get help. So just trying to consolidate that information and make that a little more visible to people that are operating in this space.
Great, thanks, Wendy. And so if you want to plug your contact in, that's great. Or if you know of people who aren't on this call that would be the contact on there, feel free to send that form to them. And I think, Wendy, what we could do in the follow-up email to this call and maybe even to the full list in future emails is share the resulting spreadsheet that you've been building. Does that make sense?
Sure. If people have comfort with that being shared as a public spreadsheet, that can facilitate things for communication and coordination. I'll just say one example of how this would be used is I was in contact with the Junior League and they have a major diaper donation that they would like to get distributed. But from my side, I don't know who's still collecting things, who has warehouse space, what you're currently collecting to be able to like filter that out to the appropriate organization. And this would give me a leg up on contacting you and saying that that resource is available and who can take it, sort of thing. So.
Great. Thanks, Wendy. Okay, well, let's open up the conversation to the group. Let's start with just kind of general observations, reflections. What are you seeing on the ground? What are you seeing as the kind of, it's been a few weeks, right? How much time has passed since most communities were really hit hard? And I'm just curious where things are. What are you seeing? What are the needs that you're seeing remain or emerge as things shift? In order to chime in, if you could just 1 month, thank you, Paris. If you could just raise a hand using the hand raise function in Zoom, or we're a small enough group that if you want to unmute and kind of chime in, that's fine, as long as we have one person talking at a time. And if you're on the phone, I believe it's *9 to raise a hand. Amy?
Hi, I wanted to just chime in quickly because I am going to have to leave in a few minutes. So at the Arts Council, we immediately kind of activated this network that we're part of called BACDARN, the Arts and Cultural Disaster and Resilience Network. And we found, obviously we're not first responders, but the time-sensitive work among cultural organizations had to do with collections care. And so we were immediately aware of some major cultural institutions that you all are probably have heard about that had extensive damage. So that was kind of the first wave for us. And then we opened up a artist flood relief grant, and we're aware of many artists whose studios were damaged. I think what we're seeing now is that, so there was an awareness of the folks who had really extensive dramatic physical damage that, through our contacts we became aware of and were supporting either through collections care or through this artist flood relief program. We'll be distributing $30,000 through that program in the next week. But now we're hearing from cultural workers and folks for whom, their cultural practice or their artistic work hasn't been front of mind, obviously, for 3 or 4 weeks. And so we're starting to hear from more and more artists, more and more smaller cultural organizations about the impact of their losses now that some of the primary damages of, homes and systems are kind of underway. Folks are starting to reach out and reporting damage to art collections, other things like that. So we're continuing to monitor and then shifting our focus to the fact that our building was also flooded out. So starting to think about our own needs there. So that's the arts and cultural report for now.
Great, thank you, Amy, for sharing that. Other observations that folks are seeing or want to share? And I'd also kind of open it up for if you have questions for the group or things that you're kind of grappling with that you'd like to do some group thinking around. I think this is a good space to do that as well. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to mention, and I saw there's somebody else here who also works with VCIL. Prior to the flood, we were already experiencing a huge influx of calls from Vermonters with disabilities and also the deaf community on a number of issues. We also get contacted regularly by folks who are precariously housed or are currently unhoused. And especially after the flood, now that a lot of agencies are, the uptick of calls to 211 economic services is so big, a lot of places are just referring to VCIL. And the message I'm trying to get out there is I am the only information or referral specialist for the entire state. We do have folks that are still working with people, throughout all counties of the state, but I will submit my information on that Google form as well. But I'm just really encouraging anybody who has a disability or knows of somebody, a neighbor, a friend who has a disability. We're really trying to do a lot of outreach that VCIL is open. And several of us have been trained by FEMA now to assist people who are really struggling with the process. So one thing that I will put out there that I'm extremely grateful for, because I'm actually in my church's office because our office was flooded, is we've had a great number of town clerks' offices, health officers, because sometimes I have to get release forms sent, and I work with people who can't read or can't write. And so I would just encourage all the organizations that are on this call, that if you are working with somebody that there seems to be a barrier where VCIL could perhaps help, please don't hesitate to give me a call or an email. That's definitely what we're there for. And I'm more than happy to field questions offline outside of this meeting. But thank you very much. That's really great to see so many people out here. And I'm certainly taking notes of resources as well.
Thanks, Nick. That's really helpful to kind of understand how we can point people in your direction. And if you could put, maybe you already did put contact info in the chat, then we could share that around in follow-up resources. And a request for maybe a description of how VCL can help, it looks like as well. Kimberly, you had a hand up. Did you still want to weigh in?
Sure, thanks. As one of the things that we've been thinking about a lot at Vermont Food Bank is how many people are losing work, lost work. It might be temporary. And a lot of times it's it might be folks that don't think to like look into resources like 3 Squares Vermont. So trying to encourage, if you're working with anyone, that maybe their restaurant's going to open hopefully Labor Day, but they're closed for a temporary time, just really encouraging people to seek support. The unemployment piece, a lot of you probably know on the call, you have to apply and be denied and then apply for this disaster unemployment. It's a process, it's a pain, and it's going to take a long time before people actually have like checks in hand. So thinking about supports for people. And then the other piece, if you are an organization that stepped up with food relief, and perhaps that's not normally what you all were doing, or if you know of an organization, be in contact with me. I'll put my email in the chat, because the Vermont Food Bank is offering grants and support for folks that have stepped up with food relief. You do have to be a 501c3, but just be in touch. If you're not on our radar, it'd be great to know what's going on too.
Great, thank you. Corinne?
Hi, thank you. And I did put this information in the chat, so I apologize if it's repeat information for folks, but what we're seeing here at CVOEO's Housing Advocacy Program, our mobile home program is getting, which are all statewide programs. Our mobile home program is getting some calls from folks looking for support, and can be on the ground helping folks connect to the appropriate resources in their flood recovery, or if there's another kind of issue that came up in the meantime. They do all sorts of kind of support for folks in the mobile home program and connecting people to resources and et cetera, et cetera. The Vermont Tenants Hotline, also a statewide resource, hasn't been getting a lot of calls from renters impacted by the flood. And we know that's not because they haven't been impacted. It's probably most of folks are kind of connecting to the mutual aid happening in their communities at this time. But we do just want to get that, that contact out there for folks. Any kind of habitability problem, even if it doesn't directly relate to the flood, or if something's come up in the meantime, Vermont Tenants can help folks get connected to the appropriate resources, and also let tenants know what their rights are, who to contact if there's a habitability issue. And all of this information is on our website. So I'll put that information again in the chat in case you missed it. And please just let folks know that those resources are out there.
Great, thank you. I am curious, Emily, I'm going to come to you next, but I do want to point out Michelle's comment in the chat, and I don't know if anyone knows of resources or where to point people, but she's making the point that that food support for people that didn't already have EBT is an unmet need, and they may not qualify even if they lost everything due to power outages, that kind of thing. So we'd welcome people to kind of chime in if you know of resources to point those folks to. Emily, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I put in the chat above, but I want to make sure it's not lost. If you have stuff you want shared specifically, well, with everyone, but with Lamoille County, if you can add to whatever your lists are, the email address I'm going to put in the chat again we have a bespoke system of communication around Lamoille, and it goes out to pretty much every helper, leader, and lots of other folks around the county. And so like I sent several of you private emails, but if you share it out, it will all get shared out again. And we were pretty hard hit in Lamoille, so I'd appreciate you emailing that person.
Great, thanks, Emily. Your background looks familiar there. Do you happen to be in VCRD offices? Nice, wish I was there. Other observations that folks want to share, or resources that you would like to get out there, or needs that you're seeing that may be unmet? Wendy?
Right, I couldn't figure out my hand raised.
That's okay, I saw you, actual raised hand.
One thing that I saw on the Facebook page that I don't think has gotten resolution, but access to pharmacies and pharmaceuticals seems hugely problematic. A lot of pharmacies were flooded. There were mail post offices that were completely shut down, so affecting mail delivery, particularly with the mold and the dust that's accumulating with debris removal. Asthmatics and their inhalers are having a very hard time. So I've put out some feelers with some legislators and Department of Health contacts, but I'm wondering if there's opportunities for either donations of pharmaceuticals over the counter medications, or if like inhaler banks could be set up, or mobile pharmacy units, et cetera. But there's an unmet need in terms of accessing medication because the buildings have been lost and the mail service has been disjointed, so.
I see Nick's hand. I don't know, Alyssa, did you have a response to Wendy before I go to Nick? New thing? Okay. Does anyone, before I go to new comments, I'm curious if anyone has thoughts or reflections on that, or thoughts on where one might go to find out about those questions.
On
In the
that
meantime, let's go to
that pharmacy one, I would approach the state. There's a new disaster relief coordinator, Doug Farnham, and that actually seems like something that the state could and should spearhead, and targeting communities that are not likely to be back online as quickly as, and I don't know, like, for example, Walgreens and Kinney in Montpelier, how long it's going to be before they're back, but I imagine it'll be, you know, even though Montpelier was so affected, a little faster than other places. And so, yeah, so I think it would be worthwhile to talk to the state about it. So Doug Farnham was just named yesterday as the flood relief. I don't know what chief, I guess.
I think the article said czar. I don't know if that's his official
Yes.
title or not, but yeah. So, and if people haven't seen that news, I don't know, Jess, you just shared a link around. It might be helpful for folks to see that news. And I imagine more will come in terms of what that role, will look like exactly, and how to best communicate with the state about these unmet needs. But we could share that article around in case people haven't seen that news yet. Nick, did you have something you wanted to add?
I'll defer to Emmett first since I spoke earlier, but then I can add if there's nothing.
Okay, Emmett, go ahead. Oh, Emmett, you're on mute. It's all right. Happens to all of us.
I know, it's funny every day.
Yeah.
So it's good for me though, because I talk too much. So this is a little early, a little fresh out of the gate, but the Vermont Everybody Eats is being relaunched today. Vermont Emergency Eats, and we've gotten funding and approved through different folks that once the emergency declared impact areas designate hubs that can be sub-granted, 3,000 meals for 30 days will be distributed to those communities, and that'll be run through SEVCA, and that will be, it's hitting today.
How, maybe you just said this and I missed it, but how can people find out about that in their region, if that's happening in other
yeah, so no one
regions?
can find out about it now.
Okay, this is breaking
This
news.
is from my executive director to me. And I'm sharing it with you because there are no secrets. See how long that keeps me in my job. Once more local hub and meal distribution information is available, the SEVCA team will share this with our team and others. So what's happening right now is all the hubs, they're all aware, they're all being communicated with. Once they get set up and once they are a location for meal distribution, then all of it was very specifically around food a minute ago. I wanted to share this with you a little bit prematurely, but it's good news. It's coming.
That's great news. Thanks for sharing that. And we'll keep an eye out for more on that, and we can share it once we see it as well. Let's go to Brad next.
Hi, folks. So Brad with Efficiency Vermont. I just want to mention that again. So we're getting some questions from folks about kind of focused on more of a resiliency side of things, how to rebuild, get mechanical systems out of basements, get mechanical systems out of areas prone to flooding, and what kind of options are available for people. We are hosting a webinar on August 10th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There'll be some announcements going out about that, and I'll make sure to send around to the group here. But the webinar will be a Q&A format to address a lot of questions from folks. And if you haven't seen, there's an article in VT Digger that went out a day or so ago about a grant program that Efficiency Vermont is working to become an administrator of, it looks like. And that's to help lower income homeowners and renters build back from the flooding events. So that's what we're seeing. That's what we're planning. And again, some of this is a little unknown right now, and that's the grant piece. But we are hearing from people interested in more modern technologies and relocating them to higher spaces in their homes. And we're hosting a webinar on the 10th with hopes to answer some of these questions and get feedback and learn what we can do to help. Thanks.
Great, thanks so much, Brad. And Wendy shared the article about the grants that you mentioned, but info about the webinar would be great too, and we can share that around to our list, because I know that's
Sure.
Yeah, as you're saying, on a lot of people's minds these days.
Yeah.
About how to move forward. Thanks, Brad.
Yep. Yep. Thank
Bob?
you.
Bob, do you want to chime in with your thoughts? There you are.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Bob Atchison. I'm the energy coordinator in Plainfield, and I've worked in weatherization for, I don't know, about 30 years now, I think. And I was, Brad just answered a couple of the questions for me, but I have a brother, for example, who had a duplex in Montpelier, and the city of Montpelier is requiring everything, any appliance, to be installed at least 2 feet above the high water mark. So that means that the 2 furnaces, the washer dryer, the 2 water heaters that were in the cellar now have to be relocated somewhere else in the house, which is really, even if you're a sharp HVAC contractor, you're going to be doing a lot of head scratching right now to try to figure out how to do this, because we know that you put a furnace in the attic, hot air does not sink, it rises. So trying to put it through a forced air system is going to be a real challenge. And also the thing that is going to be an impact, I'm afraid, is that there has been hardly enough labor crews to do basic weatherization, and now or plumbing and heating folks to do installations of newer technologies. And now we've got this, not only the basic workload, but this emergency workload as well. The real fortunate thing is that this didn't happen in the depths of winter, and nobody would be without heat, and nobody would be without everybody would be without heat that had lost their house. So hopefully we can all find a way to do this. And I'm looking forward to the webinar next week. Let's see what we can do. Check there. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob, for bringing up, these are things that are going to become more and more present as people are able to shift to thinking about rebuilding and looking at the future of these buildings that were hit hard. So that's helpful to hear. Before I come to you, Jessica, Alyssa, I remember before you had your hand up and I didn't come back to you. Did you want to say something?
I guess I would just say in terms of high level, one piece that hadn't been raised is just figuring out sustainable ways of continuing to do this work in our community. We were fortunate enough to be able to bring on a part-time coordinator because we had a lot of folks step up as volunteers. And I think in a couple of Central Vermont communities, they're now looking at creating like a staffing model to keep going with kind of long-term volunteer coordination and or transitioning down the road into kind of more of the recovery. I think like Amy mentioned at the beginning, we really are seeing a dichotomy of needs. So a lot of folks were able to get volunteers and help and respond really quickly, but also having folks who were hearing from the first time these weeks saying, I was also really impacted and have needs. And so just recognizing that there's real dichotomies within communities and beyond communities. And then that last piece, like Nick was speaking to, just about those support humans who can help people in navigating, just there are being more and more programs stood up. And so just navigating that constellation of programs and folks getting a denial and what does that mean? And, both the technical and logistical and emotional aspects of that. I think there just continues to be a lot of needs to support community members with that.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I'd certainly welcome other reflections on that as well, that kind of longer term sustainability of response work, and also how we're connecting people with those support people that they need to wade through these programs and services. Jessica, did you want to ask a question of the group?
Sure, I was just noticing this incredible crowd of a lot of resource providers here and curious and have heard some ideas in this space around sort of how to meet people's needs where they're at. I went on a tour of some of the most flood affected communities in Lamoille County yesterday, and I was struck by the fact that most of the people whose homes are uninhabitable, they're going to be uninhabitable for quite some time. And they have found temporary solutions in a number of different ways. As shelters start to close, I'm just curious about how you're pivoting your resource provision to meet the needs of community members that might be somewhere else. How are you kind of keeping track of people? I know of many people in my personal life who are living with friends or family now. How are you sort of pivoting to bring resources to people in these temporary housing situations, and what does that look like? What do you need to make that work?
Anyone have thoughts or reflections on that question?
Well, I'm not sure if I got the question totally because I was emailing in the chat to somebody who asked me a question. But I will say that I think if you don't know, all the community action agencies that serve all of Vermont, SEVCA, NECA, Capstone, CVOEO, and Brock, all have family services, client services staff that work 5 days a week year round in all our locations that serve all the towns. And one of the main jobs is really to help people with forms and paperwork and the process and all that to really get the access, to break down the barriers. So if anyone didn't know that, of course, there's a threshold. We work with lower income Vermonters. So there's a threshold if someone's making over a certain amount. However, there's no wrong door, and when someone shows up and asks a question, they usually get an answer and a referral, if nothing else. So if you don't qualify because you make a certain amount of money or whatever, but you really haven't been able to get an answer from somebody to help you, we'll still take the time to try to help you, but we can't necessarily go a lot further or spend a lot of time because of our funding connects to those thresholds, which I know a lot of folks in this conversation are aware of, but some of you may not be. So just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Emmett. Any other thoughts on that? I think the core of the question is like, people are experiencing challenges that they may not have before, right? They're not in the quote unquote system, right? And this is similar to maybe that EBT question before. People had already, if they weren't people that needed or qualified for benefits before, but are now finding with an emergency need, or were housed before and now suddenly find themselves unhoused. Like, how are we finding and meeting those needs and filling in those gaps, I think is the core of the question. Nick?
Yeah, just to respond to that, I think what I'm hearing a lot from folks, because we do, disability does not discriminate based of how much money you have or don't have. And that's what I usually encourage. A lot of people think that they see independent living and they think it's like a senior center or things like that. But, we really serve everyone. And what I basically have been seeing the most during this time is a lot of people will just, who are already familiar with us, will call us with just a lot of different questions, which I then say, I'm more than happy to help you, but you first have to apply through economic services, or you have to call SEVGA, or you have to, and sometimes that's frustrating for folks and they see it as like a step. But what really helps when in meetings like these is that I can say, I've heard from Emmett, I've heard from other people, they really do want to help, because a lot of the folks that I work with, they might have traumatic brain injuries or, any kind of trauma that for many of us, we might be able to fill out a form. There's a significant number of Vermonters who are illiterate. Which I didn't even know about before. So all the news, all the links is not very helpful for this group. And we're really trying to find the ways to bridge those gaps. So what I really appreciate getting out of this meeting is like the resources that I'm going to be able to give to people. And I think, coming from a place of, I have disabilities myself. I have a kid who does too. So we talked to a lot of people about lived experiences and how it's okay to be upset, frustrated. You're not going to be able to call an organization and get an answer in 5 minutes. I can't do that. So, but I really appreciate just having as much of, I'm putting my name out there and I'm taking a lot of names. Similarly, I'm sending emails at the same time. So I'm just really appreciative for this collective effort.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Catherine, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I actually have an idea that's on a totally different topic, and I know we're right up on the hour.
That's okay. No, yeah, let's get it in.
Okay. We're starting to get out the word about FEMA public assistance applications, which is not for individuals affected by the flooding, but for like towns and utilities. And something that I've heard brought up a few times is because like the volunteer cleanup effort happened so quickly, often towns didn't have time to document the damage or to get photographs of a culvert that was clogged that someone just cleaned out because it was right in their neighborhood. But I feel like probably a lot of individual citizens got pictures of those. So I'm wondering if there's sort of a way we could help towns and others who are applying for FEMA get connected with people who might have taken photos of damage, not really even realizing that they were, collecting documentation, but they just happen to have photos that could be useful.
Yeah, thanks. Todd, you raised your hand, and is that in response to what Catherine was sharing?
Corinne or Kareen, sorry that I got jumped in ahead of you. There's two people.
Yeah, I'll come back to Corinne. So I figured your response was probably relevant to what Catherine was.
Well, not in response to Catherine, but I had been putting things in the chat, and I apologize to two of you. It went just to you. I don't know how I did that, but I've copied them and repasted them in there. And then towns that I'm serving right now, there's a lot of second homeowners, and they're being denied by FEMA, some others. So for those of you that do have second homeowners in your town, you might want to be aware of that they're getting pretty frustrated and unhappy, I'll say.
Thanks, Todd. Corinne?
Corinne. Okay, it's me, Corinne, and not the other Corinne.
Well,
it's
Corinne,
okay.
other Corinne had her hand up, but
I'm not
yes.
used to having two Corinnes here. It's okay though.
But it looks like the other Corinne might be frozen anyhow, so you should go ahead, Corinne Cooper.
Okay. So the one thing I didn't say earlier is that I work for UVM Extension now. They're fabulous and they're helping all kinds of people and all, but what I'm doing is more of because I have the background I do, I was able to reach out to, there's about 40 mobile homeowners where they've all been flooded out. Most of the homes have been condemned. I have a great group of people that are wrapping around them, but like, this is something I'm doing in between being flooded out myself in my regular job, trying to help them. And I've figured out how to be in touch with all but one or two I'm still working on, where one of the residents put together a private Facebook group for these folks. I can email everybody because things get lost on the Facebook page. There's a few people that I need to phone, but we are trying our best to get the information they need, the resources. We're getting tangled up some because things are confusing out there. But just any resources that could potentially help these folks here in Central Vermont and Berlin, please reach out to me. You know, these people need information and help. And as much as it can be broken down to be specific, the better, you know, so I can help figure out which people it would most benefit, especially for the ones where I can only call them, you know, because for those people, I just can't keep taking the time to call people. I need to have it be very specific what could help. But so you're looking at 40 families where it's a combination of singles, couples, people with kids, retired. There's got to be at least 3 or 4 people who are 90 years old or older that are in there. And, you know, everybody is looking to figure out where they're at financially. Housing, most everybody is okay for the moment, but for a lot of them, it's just for the moment. They're couch surfing with a friend or relative, and they're not sure, like those people who might be in apartments themselves, how long a landlord is going to allow them to be there. But it's big, serious stuff. And there's a few other flooding issues in Berlin, and there's been lots of road issues. But to me, it's huge that we've got 40 families between 2 different parks that need all kinds of services.
Thanks, Corinne. So we've only got a couple minutes left here. I don't know if anyone else has a last call for resources or something that you want to share before we sign off. Any last comments, Todd?
Excuse me. The fire marshal's office, like the Rivers program, that taxpayers pay our salaries. It's free. If anybody's had any water in a basement or a first floor or a garage with electricity, recommend they call the fire marshal. They come in. I can't tell you everything that they do, but they'll look at your electrical panel. If you're typically by fire code, the receptacles are 18 inches off the floor. If there's a water line, take out the sheetrock, the insulation, feel is the insulation above dry, let it dry out. They'll take the cover plates off the receptacles. If there's silt in there, they'll say, hey, you need to get an electrician. And I tell businesses, well, everybody, you can call them back and they can come in and give you, all right, you've done everything on the list we gave you. And they'll give you another form. They're carbonless. They'll give you a clean bill of health and you can scan that and send it to your insurance company. So they don't say, well, when you had that flood, you must have had shorts that you now has caught your house on fire. it's just a lot of practical things. And then thank you, VCRD, for this. We didn't have people accustomed to these kind of communications after Irene, and it's really nice that we can do these now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd. Well, we need to wrap. I just want to appreciate you all taking the time to share resources, to share the needs that are out there. I do want to say, so a couple of things. One, VCRD, we do plan to continue to hold these conversations as long as there's an interest and need for them. We have, I wonder if I have the schedule here. I'll pull up the, or maybe Alyssa, if you could pull up the link to share in the chat to the next session. So we do have another open conversation like this scheduled. Would love to have you all join, also share with others. But we also are sharing some more structured workshop opportunities, recognizing that there are some topics that people might want to dig into a little bit more. So our next workshop opportunity is focused on community funds and kind of distributing, collecting community fundraising efforts at the very small, like individual to local and regional scale. And then our next workshop, which we're actually planning anyways, and turns out it's very timely, a workshop on community resilience efforts and examples of other communities that are building community resilience, whether that's infrastructure or also just social networks and kind of connection in communities. So that's another workshop that's coming up. We'll share the link here to those. Go ahead and register if you can. And remember that Google form to sign up with contact info that Wendy shared. Thank you all so much for the work that you're doing. Really appreciate your leadership, your dedication, and your time on this conversation. And we'll look forward to catching up again soon. Please let me know if you have ideas or needs for other topics for conversation or workshops that VCRD could help. We want to be as useful as we can in the coming months and years as we recover. So thanks everyone. Have a good afternoon. Appreciate your time.